Remember those magic shows and movies where the magician would hypnotize an audience member by uttering a particular word or phrase and could have them running around the theater believing that they were a chicken or Bigfoot or some shit? Keep that in the back of your mind. We're all literally reading everywhere that Halle Bailey was able to win sole and legal custody from her ex, a restraining order, which means that he cannot come within 100 feet of her or Halo, that he can't leave LA County with their son, and some other parental legalities. And the first thing that tells us is that she has proof. She wasn't granted all of that simply because she's a woman and a mother and went up there and asked for it. And despite it all, grown ass women are still talking about this isn't right. He's the father. He has the right to see his kids. She's just being bitter. It makes no logical sense. But this, ladies and ladies, is what being black male identified does to the brain. You click on the profile of these women and you see master's degree in this, business owner of that, mother of two girls. This shit transcends education. It transcends maternal instincts, woman instincts. It's like they were cast under that fake TV spell and the magic word or image is black man. Halle's ex is a male who cannot contain his crazy. And he also happens to be a male who made his career streaming. That Smurf craves attention, and because of that, he talks too much. And in this instance, it's a good thing. Finding out the extent of what he's allegedly been doing to her makes all of his public antics that much more diabolical, because you can now see that what he was actually doing was mental and emotional abuse. And when you step back, you can see how he progressed at it. He started by making it very clear that it was Halle who wanted to end the relationship, going for sympathy points. That he wanted more children, but he wanted them all by the same woman, obviously implying that he wanted more kids with Halle. And part of this could have been him playing up the whole how women get googly schmoogly about a male saying that he wants to have children, a black male saying that he wants them all by the same woman. And again, we now know that there was a serious reason that she broke up with him, and this is what he was doing. When that didn't work, he wanted everyone to see his roster of women, whether we wanted to see it or not. I guess he was hoping that the woman who already didn't want him would be jealous. And probably when he sensed what was coming down the pipe is when he pulled that absurd Hail Mary of, she won't let me see my son. We can clearly see what he was playing up with that. And when this bombshell finally dropped, he whipped out the piece de resistance, which was unleashing his mother to come out and attempt to defend her abusive son. And all the while, he was continuing to use their son for content, despite knowing that Halle didn't want him all over the internet like that. Something that I remember some pick-me's tried to shame her for, claiming that she was doing the same thing. But there is a difference between sharing photos and short videos of your kid and having him on 2-hour lives with all the foolishness and all the different people that goes on with that. None of this obvious information matters to these women. The information simply does not compute. It can't bypass the black male identified chip that's been implanted in there. Some people have been making the point that Cassie is blamed for not leaving Puffy and Halle is being blamed for not staying, and it's true. This is because the goal is never about any truth with him. It's always been about protecting the black male in these situations, and if they have to contradict themselves to do it, it's of no importance. Now, being black male identified may not have been why Halle chose EMT to be the father of her child, but it was clearly based on something that also didn't make any sense, and we can't ignore that. She's now stuck dealing with this mess because of decisions that she made, even if made in youth, because life doesn't spare any of us those repercussions. And this is why I believe with everything in me that teaching your daughter self-worth and self-esteem is the John Wick of self-defense systems for us, and why we have to get black women to wake up, because as long as most of them are like this, as long as they are caught up in this black male identified bullshit, their daughters, their daughters' daughters, their daughters' daughters' daughters have no chance of escaping what we're dealing with. Not only what we're dealing with, but what is going to continue to get worse. And even though it's definitely true that a lot of guys don't show you their true selves immediately. I would say most don't. It would defeat their purpose. We do have to be honest and admit that there are some who do. And that's the part that is still annoying about Halle's situation. Because remember that trash-ass auto-tune song that KFC made about knowing that Halle was out of his league, how ridiculously insecure he was about it, how he was crazy jealous, and then if it came down to it, he would intentionally try to ruin her career? I was so annoyed by the number of women who were claiming that it was just a song, he was just joking, he's trolling, y'all must not know who he is, and we didn't. I remember too how those same women said that the black women who were pointing out all of these gigantic red flags with freaking Christmas lights on them, that we were just jealous, bitter, mad because we wanted her to be with a non-black man, but, ha 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 ha, she chose a black king. That shit is projection because that's what they were doing, but in reverse. These love-sick pick-me's root for these toxic-ass relationships solely because the male is black, and they're more infatuated with the imagery of black love than the actual health of the people in it, specifically the women. They either don't know, don't care, or simply lie to themselves about how all of this can and will affect any future children they may choose to have, because remember, Halle isn't the only one who has to deal with this rabbit miniature pincher for years to come. Halo also has to deal with this thing as his dad. The same dad who everyone was screaming was the greatest father, only to find out he was beating on his son's mother. These kind of poor first-round draft picks for fathers have got to fucking stop. And these emotional masochists have and will also make terrible draft picks themselves, but at least Halle got the hell out of there and is making the safety of her son the priority, unlike them. These other ones are the type who will absolutely put men before their children, but swear up and down that that's not how they get down. But there's more than one way to skin a cat. You're not just a woman who does that if your daughter comes to you and says that your dusty-ass boyfriend touched her and you continue seeing him. You do it whenever you prioritize keeping a male around over the welfare of your children. And playing this little game of just wanting to keep your family together, despite it literally doing the opposite of what a two-parent household is supposed to do, is another way. I suspect that the male, the imagery, and no one being able to call them a black single mother are the main purposes for these women. It's not actually the children. If the father's behavior is causing chaos and pandemonium, then that two-parent household isn't a good thing, genius. These women have drank the Jonestown Kool-Aid out of the dust-filled barrels and don't think any deeper than what these minions are repeatedly telling them. A woman commented on one of those videos that they've refused to stop posting about welfare taking black males out the home, one of them videos from the 60s, and she said that she would have just had to deny the food benefits because her kid's father needed to be there. I said, this is why I don't understand why black people keep pushing this false narrative about black women's acceptance of welfare as being instrumental in destroying the black family, because pick-me black women like her would have done the same thing that she just said. Allow their children to not know where their next meal was coming from if it meant that the fallen who couldn't provide for his family could stay. Most black males believe that their revisionist version of history, the one that puts them on the highest podium of victimhood, should allow them to come before women and children. And because they believe it, most black women believe it. That the lengths adults should go to in order to make sure that they are fed, clothed, and housed should be equal or exceed that of a child. It's why they scream and cry about white men giving black women more programs than them, despite them being male. How black women getting their education is an attempt to leave them behind or is of no use to them, despite the fact that the mother getting a better education means that black children benefit. It's why they've created this narrative that if black women truly care about them, they would forego child support, prevent their kid's father from being put in the system, even though he clearly doesn't care about being in the system if he continues having unprotected sex and not taking care of his kids. And sadly, you got black women who feed right into this, proudly professing how they didn't put their absent or sporadic exes on child support, despite this hurting themselves and the children. These women emphatically deny being like this, but how they move, how they operate, how they respond to individual circumstances, like defending dudes like AKC, R. Kelly, Chris Brown, Puffy, Shannon Sharp, and the rest of them. It says what they really feel. Operation Poe Blackmail is constantly in effect, and it's constantly being played on black women. And they have an arsenal full of these tactics that get black women like them to do exactly what they want them to do. The whole "she's keeping me away from my kids" routine from the group who has the highest father abandonment rate has worked. Them being able to be the greatest victims while also being the greatest victimizers to black women has worked. Tying women who actually want to keep their children safe with being bitter and hateful has worked. Chris Brown is sitting in a UK jail for smashing a tequila bottle over a music producer's head back in 2023, and a black male commented how sad it is to see black women happy that a black male is in jail. These are all tactics of theirs that are incessantly played on black women. Part of the reason Chris Brown being locked up was relevant was because he had just posted "Free Tory" in response to that little smurf getting shanked in prison. And then a week or so later, he gets locked up. Of course, there's going to be black women who don't give a shit that he's in jail. Yet that miscreant still played the "black male are victims of the system" card. I've seen so many of them say, well, he hasn't done anything to Halo, just Halle, so why should she be trying to keep him away from him? And it's like, ma'am, why do you think it is a smart idea to send your child unsupervised? I don't care if it's the father or not who has been beating on the mother. Like, what the hell is wrong with y'all? But because they have allowed black males to play this game about mothers keeping them away from their kids, they're willing to take that risk. Again, because it's more about him than it is about their own damn children. We see these stories all the time, and then everyone is screaming at that mother, why would you let them go with him? Why didn't you And it's like they're sitting here saying basically that they would do the same thing. It is just constant contradictions because none of this shit makes sense. Like going around saying that they are the most involved fathers, but then leaving comments in situations like this where you're essentially saying like, bitch, you got a black male who's actually trying to step up to be a father, and you're gonna pull this shit? That a black woman is supposed to be so grateful that a black male who's fathered a child is doing what he's supposed to be doing, that she will take these type of risks with the children just to show her gratitude. You know, like on their knees, just so thankful that he's doing what he's supposed to. This situation with Halle and MTV is proof that money alone doesn't automatically disqualify a male from being low tier. But it also does not mean that men with money are bad and broke men are good with high morals, which is this extremely bizarre concept that is so heavily pushed, again, for the benefit of who? Why? Why would something that doesn't make sense be pushed? Dating someone who's jealous of you is downright dangerous. Halle's relationship with NBC is textbook. The American Psychological Association is one of many who have made it clear that unequal relationships between men and women have a much greater chance of infidelity, the end of the relationship, and even abuse. Women in general are groomed into believing this fairy tale mindset when it comes to the opposite sex, the Cinderella syndrome. So when you add that to this programming done on black women since we were girls, it makes it even more difficult to avoid getting caught up in situations like Halle did. Unless you have parents who recognize this game and raise you from day one to not operate like that, it's usually a journey to get to that point of understanding it. So many black women were trying to warn Halle, and I just hope young black girls out there are able to look at Halle's situation from the beginning of her relationship with that little shit up to what's going on now and learn from it. The likelihood, though, sadly, is that, at least for the time being, most unfortunately won't. Because the sheer amount of black male identified black women who don't want to unlearn this nonsense is guaranteeing that they won't.